I'll let you know shortly.
Okay.
Right, we're recording.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we're live. Right. I'll start again. Gentleman waving his hand. It's me, Michael Benjamin. I am the chair of your local access forum for this meeting and for probably a few more as well. So good morning to you all. Welcome to this digital meeting of the local access forum. It's being held via Microsoft Teams on Friday, today, the 4th of June at 10 a.m. So just to confirm that this meeting will be recorded and made available to view via the council's website, except for discussions involving confidential or exempt items. Therefore, the images and audio of those individuals present and or speaking will be publicly available to all via the recording on the council's website at www.caerphilly.gov.uk. If members lose connection during the meeting, please make every effort to reconnect. However, the meeting will continue as long as it remains quorate. Committee services staff are available and be able to assist you to reconnect if necessary. Can I remind members to please mute their microphones, but to leave their cameras on, and ask officers to have their microphones and cameras turned off until they are invited to present their reports or speak on an item. Members and officers should only activate their microphone after the chair has invited them to speak on an item. And to help with the smooth running of this technology, I request that there be no interruptions during the speaker presentations. I'm sure they'll be happy to take questions from the floor at the end of the presentations. So today we'll be using hands up for voting on agenda items. Right. So, I think, Charlotte, are you taking, or have you marked the register, taking a roll call?
Yes, Chair, if you'd like me to go through the register, I'll do that now.
Yeah, okay then, over to you.
Thank you. For those members present, if you could just say present, put your microphone on and say present if you're available. I've got Councillor Nigel George, Mr. Michael Benjamin.
Present.
I've got apologies from Mr. Barry Clark. Glyn Davis, we've got apologies. Mr. Keith Donovan. Joe Edwards.
Present.
Alison Evans.
Present.
Elaine Gwynn. David Hale.
Present.
Lorraine Howells.
Present.
David Llewellyn.
We've seen him in some shape or form, haven't we, earlier on?
June Morgan.
Present.
I've received apologies from Alison Palmer. Michael Poynton. Ruth Stones, I've got apologies for. Maggie Thomas.
Present.
Nigel, thank you. Nigel Yates.
Present.
And Dr. Alex Wilson. Thank you, Chair, that's everybody.
Okay, thank you.
I think you've missed me out, Councillor Walter Williams.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Williams. Yes, thank you.
I know I'm at the end with a W, but okay.
Right, thank you, Charlotte. Item number 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. So obviously, councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and or prejudicial interest in respect of items in accordance with the Local Government Act and the council's code of conduct for both councillors and officers. Any declarations of interest? No, right, thank you. Moving on, item number 3, minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 12th of March 21. I'll now go, for accuracy, I will call out the page numbers. So unfortunately, I've only got this on screen, so if you bear with me, I'll see what we can organise. Where did I park it now? Not that one, nor that one, nor that one. You probably lost me. Right. Right. Page 1. Then moving on to page, it's here somewhere, page 2. Then on to page 3. And page 4. Page 5. Can anybody hear me? Yes?
Yes, okay, I can hear you.
Oh, that's all right. I thought perhaps I'd switched myself out. We just had page 5, so we're on to page 6. And page 7. And then I've copied it in page 8. And that concludes it. You're happy with that? Let's see if I can get back to our meeting. Where are we? Reach, is that the one? I don't think so. No. Right. I'm back again. Okay, so do I have a juggling around with paperwork here? I've got to invite somebody that they are. Have I got the right page?
Looking for someone to move, Chase.
Yeah.
Right. I was just going to move. We say it's an accurate record. Of
That's
the
right.
minutes.
That's what I'm looking for. Is on one of the many boxes I've got open here. It's just trying to find that 4th of June. Oh, I'm completely lost.
Yeah, Chair, if we just have a vote of someone to propose that the
yeah, that's the wording. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Phil. So, like, somebody propose the accuracy of the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll move, Chair.
And do I have a seconder?
Second, yeah, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Right. Okay, moving onwards. Number 4, matters arising from the minutes. Any points? So nothing there. Everybody's happy with everything. Right. Thank you for all that. Moving on now, item number 5 on your agenda. It's the heading of the active travel plan, something which we're all pretty familiar with. And I think, where are we? Yes, somebody matters arising. Yeah, Phil, I understand you are going to introduce somebody on that.
Yes, Chair, I'll introduce. As you recall, at the last meeting, it gave a sort of brief update on the consultation taking place on the active travel plan, which is occurring in Caerphilly at the moment. And I put forward the offer of somebody coming to discuss it and give it in a little bit more detail than what I could do. So I've approached Clive Campbell, who I notice isn't here and has gone through his usual delegation mode, I should imagine, as the sun is shining. So he's probably in his back garden in Penarth enjoying the rays. So I think he's got you in, Jason, to do this, hasn't he?
I think he snuck in as well.
Oh, he snuck in, is he? Yeah, I can see Clive is there now. Yeah. So yeah, thanks. So well, thanks to them both for agreeing to do the presentation. I won't say much more in terms of introduction in case I step on their toes of what's going on. But this is one of two presentations we've got today. We have Phil Lewis of VRP coming on afterwards. So I've basically asked Clive if he could present a sort of half an hour slot or so on this. He's not on the clock by any stretch of the imagination, but that's sort of the remit that I gave. So if it's okay, I'll hand over to Clive and Jason.
Thank you, Phil. Good morning, everybody. Clive Campbell, Transportation Engineering Manager for Caerphilly, here in person. I am joined by my colleague, Jason Horwood, who's a Senior Assistant Engineer in our Infrastructure Division. And together we'll give you just a brief overview of the active travel work and review of the integrated transport network, travel network that we're working on. So I will, if I can find it, share a presentation. So we are supported by our colleagues, Sustrans, who are working on this with us. Can everyone see that presentation?
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, because of the school holidays, they're unable to join us today. So it will be Jason and myself giving this presentation, but we'll do our best to give you a good overview of what we've been up to. So just make sure there's no feedback, bit of housekeeping. If you can mute your microphones, that should help. To make sure there's no feedback. The presentation is intended to just give you a brief overview of the work we're doing on the review of the active travel network map. And because of time constraints, we'll keep this fairly brief. But we can make the presentation available to you, and I'd ask then that you'd leave any questions till the end, and we'll do our best to pick up on those and respond. So there's three main parts of the presentation. So I'll give an overview of active travel and the consultation we're undertaking, the engagement process we're going through, and where we are to date, and then I'll hand over to Jason then, who will explain how the network is being developed, and after that then we'll open it up to any questions you may have. So active travel then, as a reminder for those who may not be fully familiar with it, it's actually a statutory duty upon local authorities and came into force in 2014. It's also consistent, or rather we are required to be consistent with the Future Generations Act, but there are other initiatives and policies that we need to be consistent with as well. We've got our local public service board, but more recently, earlier this year, Welsh Government published the new Wales transport strategy, and it's consistent with that as well. So in the hierarchy of transport policy, active travel, walking and cycling is right at the top. Just a reminder of the definition of active travel that Welsh Government has set, and it is a key policy initiative and legislative initiative from Welsh Government. It's quite unique. We are leaders on this in the UK, but the focus is on those A to B journeys that are for a purpose. So focusing on things like access to employment, education, healthcare, or key services. And while it can form a journey in its own right, we also need to look at it as part of potentially as part of a longer journey that links in with public transport, and the focus being on making sustainable journeys. What it isn't focused on is leisure rides or for sports purposes. So while that isn't the priority for active travel, it doesn't mean we can't consider those routes, but it does mean that they are less likely to be prioritise for any available funding. That said, we are open to looking at those routes, and where a case can be made, then we will do so. But we will also look to make sure that any active travel network links in with those other routes as well, so particularly rights of way. And some of you may recall in the one of the early initiatives of Welsh Government was called Safe Routes to Schools, and that looked at again promoting and enabling sustainable journeys to and from school, walking and cycling. And that grant ran for many years, but evolved into what is now called Safe Routes in Communities. So it's looking at the community journey, not just the school journey, but does focus on and around schools to a large extent. And the intention is then that the active travel networks will attract, in particular, those who are either less familiar with walking and cycling or haven't cycled, and to attract them to make more sustainable journeys. So we are looking to deliver infrastructure that makes that journey as attractive as possible and as safe as possible to build that confidence in making that change. Through the legislation and the guidance from Welsh Government, they have designated certain localities that local authorities should focus on in terms of prioritising active travel routes, and the settlements listed here are those that are designated for the Caerphilly borough area. Now, while they are the focus and where the priorities should be, it doesn't preclude looking at routes outside of those communities where the case can be made for an active travel journey or route.
Clive, I think you might need to skip on the slides to number 6. If that's...
Yeah.
I don't think that's come up.
Right. What can you see at the moment?
The first page.
The first page. Wow. Oh, there must be it must be a delay in the network then. Sorry, I'm on slide. All right.
The slides will all be made available later on anyway as part of the as part of the sort of downloads, won't they, Clive? Anyway. Right.
Sorry, it must just be a delay with the network then, because as I'm moving on, it's clearly not moving on in terms of what you can see. All right. So I made reference to the localities. In case you can't see that, there are 16, and just very quickly: Caerphilly, Aberbargoed, Abercarn, Bargoed, Blackwood, Newbridge, Pontypridd, Risca, Wattsville, Ystrad-Mynach, Nelson, Rumney, Pontlottin, Abertrydder, New Tredegar and Llanbradach. What slide are you able to see at the moment?
It's just the front page. I think if you can click on where it says the slides in order 1 to 6. If you click on slide 6, I think that might work.
Right.
Yeah, you got that now.
Okay, now you see it. You're seeing it now, are you? Sorry, yeah. I put it in presentation mode and it clearly wasn't working for you. So that's the designated localities. So apologies for that. Why is active travel important? Well, this slide it's not intended for you to read now, and as I say, we'll make the slides available. But it's just to make the point that we are looking at active travel from the widest possible perspective. So we are looking at social, economic, and environmental benefits, and that, again, that links in with the well-being of future generations. So there are positive benefits for active travel for all of these from all these perspectives. In terms of how active travel has been unfolding in within Caerphilly, we're linking it in with a number of related initiatives. So just taking you through these examples, last year we had 20 schools that achieved that Healthy Schools National Quality Award, and active travel was very much part of the curriculum that supported those schools in achieving those awards. Transport for Wales is committed to delivering the rail transformation programme on the core valley lines. So that's the Rumney line for us in particular. But as part of that, we are working with them on looking at those active travel links to key facilities. We're also delivering active travel schemes and routes in their own right. So in recent times, we've delivered the walking route from Nelson to Ystrad, and the INMC reference there, the INMC 17 in this case, are the references that are identified in the active travel maps that are on the website. We've had a cycling route in Ystrad, INMC 19, and just finished delivering, or very close to finished delivering, a walking and cycling route between Ystrad and Pen Pederill and Kevin Hengoyd. And we are in the process of developing many other routes as well for delivery. On a regional front, there's also an initiative, a joint initiative with Welsh Government, with the Cardiff Capital Region and Regional Transport Authority, so a jointly funded package of schemes looking at what's termed Metro Plus. So we've got Transport for Wales delivering the Core Valley Lines rail transformation programme, but that is supplemented by additional schemes, for example, Park and Ride and interchanges that are being funded by the region, which is made up of the 10 local authorities in South East Wales and Welsh Government. And yes, sorry, the last one there is the one of the main public transport priorities that we're working on developing it, which is a new interchange for Caerphilly Town, and details on that will be forthcoming throughout the course of this year. Also, when it comes to new development through the planning system, we are making sure that any new infrastructure that is proposed by developers takes on board active travel requirements. We're also working with schools in terms of the Curbcraft scheme, that is a pedestrian initiative, providing training to younger children on being road safe, learn to cross roads safely. We're also delivering national standard cycle training. So we're not just looking at the infrastructure provision, we're also looking at the softer measures to enable and support behaviour change. And the school travel plan initiative, also working with schools, it looks at that. Right, just a moment. Right. In terms of the network, the Act came into being in 2014, but it wasn't until 2017 that the first active travel maps, or integrated network maps as they're known, were prepared and signed off by Welsh Government. And as I said, that is on the website. But the requirement under the Act is that they are reviewed at least every 3 years, and we are in the process of that now. Because of coronavirus, we were granted it, all local authorities were granted an extension, so the date for completing this review is December this year, and that's what we're working through at the moment. And these plans, although they set a 15-year programme, you need that periodic review to make sure they're up to date. And the focus is providing an integrated networks that enable sustainable journeys, but it's not about banning the car, as it says in the presentation there. So in terms of where we are, we've gone through a number of phases. We're out to phase 2, and I'll explain that the phases in a moment, with the draft maps that we're looking for views on before we finalise a new network or revised network for the final stage of consultation. And then that will be taken through to our formal committee structures for sign-off within the council before it is presented then and submitted to Welsh Government for final approval. So in terms of the engagement process then, we are very much looking to develop these networks with our local communities, because that will mean we'll get a better outcome. We'll have a higher level of impact. More people will be encouraged to change their mode of behaviour, the modal shift. And we are particularly keen to attract feedback and support from those who don't normally cycle or walk extensively. To that end, then, we're casting the net fairly wide in terms of who we're engaging with. So not just our delivery partners, but there's the wider public, but also we are focusing on organisations and groups that represent people with protected characteristics. So we're covering off our equality duties. We're also keen to engage with young people as well. And we've had a number of stakeholder sessions with those groups, and some are ongoing. So in terms of the engagement process then, I refer to phases. There's 3 phases of this consultation process for the review. The first phase was undertaken earlier this year, in which, and it's all been map-based, partly because of the coronavirus restrictions, but also because Welsh Government have set up a new mapping-based system that provides easier access to information to the wider public. So the first phase of consultation was asking the general public about what barriers they perceive to be in their communities for walking and cycling. The second phase of consultation that we're in now is asking for feedback on the draft network of the revised active travel network maps. And the final stage of consultation will be dates to be confirmed, but it will be later on this year, where once we've finalised those set of maps, we'll put that out for consultation again. So in each phase, we are trying to build in the feedback we receive into the development of the network. So we've engaged as far as wide as we can, largely through email communications, but also through social media and the press, and information on our website. And we've liaised directly with some key representative bodies and organisations, such as Royal National Institute for the Blind and the Children's Commissioner, etc. So the first phase of consultation, just to give you an example of what sort of feedback we've had, almost the best part of 3,000 people visiting the website, and this is a website, as I said, that Welsh Government have set up that most of the 22 local authorities are utilising. Over 700 people contributed to the platform with almost 3,000 contributions. So that has been great feedback from a wide range of people covering all sort of ages and abilities. And that provided very useful information that we've helped us to develop the draft network that's out for consultation now. So an overview of some of the makeup of the responses we've had. You can see, hopefully you can see there. If not, you'll be able to see it once we share the presentation. But we've had feedback from a number of different types of users, and the one I draw your attention to, the black bar at the bottom, is car drivers. So we have been able to get considerable feedback from those whose main mode of travel is the car. So it's particularly helpful. While we've undertaken some focused and targeted stakeholder engagement, there are a couple of underrepresented groups. So the 16 to 24-year-olds and the older 75+ group, where we've been a little light on feedback. So we are looking to, we're in the process of undertaking more direct engagements with those groups or representative groups. So we are engaging with schools at the moment, and we are looking at engaging with groups representing the older population. And this is where I hand over to Jason to take you through developing the network.
Hello. Yeah, so this is going to be a sort of a quick overview on the sort of technical side of how we come up with the maps. So from our 2017 maps, in partnership with Sustrans, we undertook site visits to have a look to make sure what we had done was up to standard, so we could update our maps to the 2021 as it had not been updated for 3 or 4 years. So that's where we started with the maps, was updating our old ones. So next slide. So how we come up with our baseline was using GIS mapping tools. So they used what you can see on the plan is the propensity to cycle tool, which shows key corridors and where people are cycling using census data. And they also used population density, points of interest, and sort of and where schools were, sort of overlaying all this information onto the maps. You can sort of have a look where the key corridors are within communities. So it gives a good baseline of where people want to cycle, what destinations they're trying to get to, and where the sort of the key focus we need to be looking at. Yeah, next slide. So another part of sort of the baseline information was using the commonplace information. This is what Clive was talking about earlier. So the points on the plan and the comments made can be overlaid on top of the communities. So it gives us sort of more evidence on what corridors and what are the important parts of communities, what comments people are making, and gives us more a targeted look on where are the key sections within these areas that need to look at. So when we draft our maps, we're improving the key areas, not just based on data, but baseline data and desktop study, but also public engagement. Yeah, next slide. So yeah, so this is just a graphic that sort of summarizes how all the information that we have taken to start drafting the network. So that is the commonplace public engagement. There's also a historic engagement that people have said. So it's not just the commonplace, it's sort of knowledge of what we've gained over time as well. Obviously the GIS mapping. So it's looking at the PCT data and the point of interest, and another key factor is obviously trying to expand on what networks we've already got, and a key part of that is trying to link networks together, so that comes through the site visits. So using all those sorts of 3 data sources, that's where we started with our draft network. So this is a somewhat small example of our draft network. As Clive said, this is open to consultation, and you can find the link if you Google Caerphilly Active Travel Commonplace. It's the number 2, and it's open now, so you can have a look. We can send a link around later, but you can just Google that as well. So it's showing the sort of density that we're looking within communities. So it's looking at joining up small places and towns, and it's also looking to join up residential areas as well. I think some of the points that I think might be interest of the forum on where we're looking to improve things is what we're trying to concentrate on is traffic-free routes. So looking where we can, looking at widening footpaths or widening or removing access or barriers, or like cutting back verges, or trying to put in new cycle lanes where they're not just on the road. So I think we'll be trying to look to improve footways to allow more vehicles, and vehicles being cyclists and pushchairs and buggies and that sort of thing. And I did sort of overhear right at the start of the forum the problem with motorbikes on using the sort of abusing these routes, and that is something that we are aware of and had complaints about, is trying to remove access controls and opening up new areas as cycle routes is going to attract or is open for abuse from motorcycle users. But I think we have to weigh it up with using access controls and tools like that is also going to stop people using hand cycle or double buggy and prams. So it's trying to not restrict the people, legitimate people, to use it, and it's also trying to restrict the people who are going to abuse it. So it's a bit of a tricky balance that we're trying to get. Yeah, I think next slide. Yeah, so I think so at the end of this, I think what we're hoping for in our second consultation, the one that's open now, we're hoping to get feedback on our network that we're proposed. So hopefully we'll have evidence looking for future funding that will agree with the routes that we're proposing. Also, hopefully people might pick out points, bits we've missed maybe or something, so we can get a good picture of what people think of our draft map really. Yep, and sort of Clive went on the sort of discussed this as well. So once all the consultation is done, the maps will be submitted to Welsh Government at the end of the year, and then that will be, we'll use that map then for future funding to try to get these schemes built. And yeah, so and every 3 years then we'll go back and review, we'll update our maps to include the new stuff we've done, and also try to improve it for the future again. So I think that that's the last slide on the technical stuff. So I think we're happy to answer some questions if anybody has them really.
Hello.
Hello.
That's us done. So if you have any questions, we're happy to take them.
Yeah. Is that Chair? Is it all right if I ask a question?
Yes, do go ahead, Mike. Yes. Before you start, I just like perhaps at this interjection, just like thank Sir Clive Campbell and Jason Horwood for their presentations and the detail and information, and hopefully we'll be able to see these on the ground very soon. Over to you, Mike.
Good morning, Clive and Jason. My name is Mike Poynton. I'm represent Glamorgan, Gwent Ornithological Society. I'm also in Glamorgan Bird Club as well, but at the moment it's Gwent Ornithological Society. My concern is about these. about walking and cycling together. In my experience is it just does not work. I've been involved in a couple of accidents with cyclists when I've been out walking, and I noticed that even on your slides, you'd got people on cycles, 2 children on cycles, on pavement. I mean, pavements at one time used to be sanctuaries for walkers. They're no longer that. They are dangerous. They've got cycles on them. They've got skateboards. They've got scooters, electric cars. There's cars parked on them. Have you got any strategy to combat that?
There is guidance on, and there is in the Welsh Government guidance on heavily walked areas. They will, sort of like high streets and sort of things, do prioritise pedestrians, and there is, you can measure the pedestrian flow, and that will give you an idea of what is suitable to have on that, whether you can have it a shared foot cycleway, you know, cyclists and pedestrians walking along. It's a very difficult one on that one, really, because if you're walking to school, your primary school with your children, they're often scooting, and if it's not shared foot cycleway, then it's sort of illegal. It's a very difficult topic, and there's no right answer to it. I think it comes down to, you know, there's nobody really at fault in a lot of these, and it does take a bit of giving and throwing, and you can't. And some people are going to be foolish on these things, but I think we need to be providing more opportunities for people to get out and about, and unfortunately people will be bad, but I think the benefits of providing improved links is the way forward, really.
I think that certainly if you're going to provide links for people so they can get from A to B, like you said, so people might want to go to school or go to work, but I think that they don't seem to be compatible if you've got people on bicycles and people walking. It's particularly, I mean, look at Caerphilly town centre. You've got a white line down the middle of the footpath by the castle. The outside lane is for walkers and the inside lane is for cyclists. I mean, that surely does not work, does it?
Yeah,
and it's that type of thing I'm concerned about. I honestly say this, I have been involved with cyclists before now doing this. I understand what you're trying to do, and I can see that the aim is good, but I think that there are a lot of difficulties once you start having multi-use pathways.
Oh, Clive, do you know?
Yeah, I was going to say, just referring back to the Welsh Government design guidance, you know, there's a hierarchy of design. So segregated routes is the top of the tree, and then on-road cycle lanes is a sort of a last resort. And it's about what is appropriate in each circumstance, and you try to achieve the best you can given the circumstances. Now there's the infrastructure, and then there's the behaviour. So the infrastructure can achieve so much, but it does rely on people being responsible, and that's not always the case, unfortunately. And there's only so. And while we do our best to provide suitable infrastructure, we're also working on the softer side in terms of changing behaviour and improving behaviours through education and training. But it's a bit like driving. You know, you can provide high quality roads, but that doesn't mean everybody drives sensibly. So there's an element of personal responsibility that people need to take as well.
Thank you.
Nigel, I believe I can see a hand up on the screen here. I think, and then perhaps Maggie Thomas after that.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very fluid situation at the moment, isn't it? I can see that there's quite a few nightmares ahead of us. Like the electric scooters, there's a big debate about that, and they're a great advantage in some cases, but a huge disadvantage in others. How we sort this out, I think we'll see in the future, but it is at the moment not set in stone what happens. I think we need to be fluid about what we can and cannot do, but I think it'll eventually come out in the wash, but it'll take a while to get it sorted out. I think it's going to be very difficult, I think, but I think hopefully common sense will prevail in the end, and the right decisions will be made about these scooters and bikes and all the sorts of electronics now that are being adapted to help us get mobile, as it were.
Well, I agree with what you say there, and it's a long-term project when you're talking about changing behaviours, and this country doesn't have as great a culture of cycling as you find in many places in the continent, and to achieve that shift is going to take a long time and effort. Specifically on the scooters, the electric scooter side, I'm sure many have seen that it seems to be growing in its popularity. Local authorities in Wales have been very nervous and cautious about it and haven't formally embraced it. You can go to places in England where they have gone for it in a big way, and where, if you've been to Cardiff and you've seen the Next Bike scheme, where it's the bike hire scheme, there are some places in England where they've got a similar scheme for electric scooters, and you will see examples where your heart's in your mouth and you think, oh, that's awful, that's dangerous, and there'll be others where you see people coexisting quite easily, and it is just about that cultural change, that behaviour change, and getting used to a different way of travelling, really.
Let's see. Thanks, Clive. Walter, can I invite you? What's I think it's flashing up your name, is it?
Yeah, that's it.
Want to make a contribution?
Thank you. Yeah. The times I've used the cycle track from the Rock up to Oddiebush, I would say it's a cycle track, but it's a walking track, it's a jogging track, everything, and cycles and walkers together. The one thing the cyclists haven't got is a bell. And very often, it's very close to having accidents, because they come shooting past you. They don't shoot if they haven't got a bell, at least shout, get out of the way or something. But I think there's got to be a real tightening up on this. Because years ago, the first thing you do when you buy a child a bike would be to put a bell on it. But now, that's gone, that's forgotten about. Okay, thanks.
I think if you buy a new bike, it does have to come with a bell, so people are sneakily taking them off. So I don't know, or just not using them.
Not using them either. Yeah.
It works both ways, because there are the responsible cyclists who will try and use the bell and alert pedestrians, but then there are some pedestrians who are spooked by a bell and jump sideways when they hear it. So it is about just getting used to it, and as I said, through the softer measures, the training, then we're trying to encourage that the use of the bell for a warning. It's a bit like a code of conduct. So you like to have the highway code for drivers. You can have something similar for cyclists. It's just that it's not as embedded as it is for drivers at the moment.
If I can just add something in there, just before Meg, I do a lot of cycling. I've got a bell on my bike. When I encounter pedestrians on the dual purpose cycle routes, I try and announce that I'm passing, if it has to be a close pass, but they get no response from the walkers. And when you actually, when you do pass them, you look at them, they've got they're totally disconnected. They're all listening to the music. So, the only way you can get them to move is shout bike when you're alongside them. And then it's only at a very loud voice, so they actually respond. Maggie.
Hello?
Is Maggie, did you want to, I think you're on mute, is it? We're still, you need to unmute. No.
Sorry.
Right, yes, you're through.
A couple of points. I mean, I agree with quite a lot of what Clive said the last time we spoke. But one of the reasons that coexistence appears to work is a lot of walkers will jump out of the way. And I feel that older people, walkers, are being sidelined more and more by the number of people who are using illegally using pavements. I'm going to disagree with what Jason said there about that it's sort of acceptable for all these other people, except children. I do think that we have to allow young children on scooters and bikes on the pavement. It's just not safe otherwise. But the other thing, apologies if it's not the right thing to say here, but there has to be a little bit of joined up departmental discussion when it comes to active travel and planning, because it seems to me that new developments are being built where there is no delineation between roads and pavements. Now, she might have been being economical with the truth, but a representative of Taylor Wimpey said that that is what they are being asked to do now by the authority, that when they build new developments, that there might be a line, but there is no curb between the road and the pavement. Well, there's going to be nowhere for walkers to go if that continues, and that maybe the Transport Department should be speaking to the Planning Department about that.
Well, just to respond to that, it's my area that provides highway comments on planning applications. So I'd like to think we're a little bit joined up, but it isn't one size fits all, and we try and be consistent with the design guidance that's out there for new developments, whether that's the Welsh Government's Active Travel Design Guidance or things like Manual for Streets, and we encourage that the designs are, we design from the outset from the pedestrian, then the cyclist, then public transport, and car being last. But practically, car ownership isn't reducing, so we still need to allow for safe provision for car users. And when it comes to segregation, whether it's through a curb or a line, we need to make sure that whatever infrastructure we provide, it is clear what the routes are for the different users, or whether it is shared. And even if it is segregated, you will still find people walking along the cycling area and people cycling along the pedestrian area through just poor behaviour. So there's so much you can do from a design perspective, and then as I said before, there's still an element of personal responsibility and requiring people to be responsible in the way they use the infrastructure. But we are doing our best to work with developers to achieve good design from the outset.
Right. Thanks, Clive. I think we've more or less exhausted all the questions. Unless anybody's got just perhaps one final quick question before we move on.
Yeah, actually, Mike has got his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Just one quick thing. I'm also a member of the U3A in Cardiff, and we were discussing precisely what we've been talking about today, because we're all of a certain age and using pavement. You were talking about contacting people who are 75. Well, I'm nearly there. 74 will do for you. And one of the fellows who was there, who's lived in America for some time, said that in America, amazingly, I mean, we import some rubbish from America, but one good thing is they have a cycling protocol, and that when they're approaching walkers, they have to, by law, announce that they're coming along and then say, cycle. I don't know the exact protocol, but they have to then say cycling approaching from the left-hand side, and that is in law. So it's amazing that they should do that in America, and yet in this country, you are still talking, and we're still talking about people using their common sense. And I think sometimes, common sense very often goes out of the window, doesn't it?
Well, what I often say is common sense isn't necessarily common.
True enough, Clive.
And it would be lovely to have something like that in the UK, but unfortunately there isn't a universal code of conduct. It's something that I'm sure Sustrans and other cycling charities would love to see, but we're just not there yet. And while there's limited information in the highway code, unless you're going through driving lessons, you're not required to learn that. So it is certainly an area for improvement, and I know it's something that the likes of Sustrans and Welsh Government continue to battle with in achieving improvements.
Okay, thanks, Clive. Okay, well, again, if nothing else, I'd like to add my thanks to our guest speakers for their contribution, and perhaps move on to item number 6.
Thanks, lads. There'll be one behind the bar for you on this.
I'll hold you to that. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you both.
And yeah, thanks. And move on to item number 6, where we have a guest speaker, Phil Lewis from the Valleys Regional Park. Phil Lewis, I was going to say the floor is yours, but I think we have to, this day and age, we have to say the screen is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Just to introduce myself, my name's Phil Lewis. I'm the grand title, but the strategic and operational lead for the Valleys Regional Park. So I'm on loan to Bridgend Local Authority from Welsh Government to lead the development of the Valleys Regional Park on behalf of a partnership of 13 local authorities, which include the 10 within the capital city region, and also Neath Port Talbot, Swansea and Carmarthenshire from the Western authorities, so covering the sort of the Valleys area. The non-Valleys local authorities are also in our partnership, largely because I think we need to recognise that we're looking to actually bring people out of the cities and towns on the coast up more towards the sort of A465 sort of area, and to use the valleys and so on, so that they're also within that. So I've got a short presentation, and I've also got a film I'm going to show. You can see this. The film isn't released yet. It's being released next week. So you get a preview of this, which sort of gives a flavour of some of the ambition we've got, and then I'll go through what's needed. So let me sort of try and work my way through what we've got here. Okay.
It's time. Time to protect that which protects us. Time for a green recovery. Time to reconnect with our wilder sides. Time for some self-discovery. It's time to restore. Time to reclaim. Time to explore so we can find ourselves again.
Whoops. Let me make it longer.
Time to come together, to celebrate and understand our heritage, our future, written in the land. It's time to rediscover what matters. Time to rediscover our valleys.
Okay, so let me just go back to the slideshow then. Okay, yes. So as I said, my name's Phil Lewis. Phil Griffiths has been the lead within Caerphilly Local Authority in working through the developments of the Valleys Regional Park proposals, which sort of came out of the task force, the Valleys Task Force, which was originally led by Alan Davis, and then latterly with the change of government mid-term by Lee Waters, and I think key for this really is that development of the partnership, the aim for taking the regional approach. And initially, the task force provided a grant for the period up until April 2021 for a small team, which is hosted by Bridgen, but then working in our partnership. And more recently, we've been successful in securing funding through to the summer of 2023 through quite a convoluted and complicated sort of bids to both the European Social Fund and the Rural Development Fund, and I'll say a little bit more about what's expected for those as we go through. But really, the Valleys Regional Park very much builds on the work that was done probably 10 years ago, which was sort of led by Andrew Osborne of Torfaen and David Llewellyn, who some of you will probably know now, working with the Aneurin Bevan sort of wellbeing team, and building on the future options, sort of lessons learned from that, supported by some capital investment that came out of Welsh Government in the last term, which provided £7 million to develop some community sort of facilities and improvements within a number of our parks and attractions across the valleys, which again I'll say a little bit more about in terms of the discovery gateways. The mission that we have developed in that partnership for the Valleys Regional Park is really quite broad. It's actually to bring together the health of the land, the people and the economy and everything we do. So we sort of recognise the opportunities we have and the stunning landscape we have as it's coming out of its industrial past. And how we can use that both for the sort of well-being of the land, for the people, and for sort of economic sort of aspects. And falling out of that, three key sort of areas that we recognise the land for its quality, and we take a regional commitment to its coordination, promotion, and management, and so on. The people are reconnected to the Valleys landscape. And with all the challenges we've had of COVID, one opportunity that there has been is that people have largely been reconnected, and the amount of people who are walking, cycling, exploring their local environment, their local landscapes, and are keen to continue to do that is huge as a result of what's gone on over the last sort of 15 months or so. But seeing that that's a focus for sort of where people work, where they relax, and sort of building on nature, but also recognising the sort of arts and heritage aspects of it, and linking with schools and so on. And then also that the sort of Valleys landscape underpins a resilient sort of local economy, supporting business, community enterprise and so on, and developing skills and learning, and sort of we take that through, and that's really, really closely linked to the sort of green recovery work that's being done across all sectors at the moment. As I said, we've secured recently funding through to the summer of 2023, and the two aspects. One is Rural Development Programme, where I'll come on to a little later, but one is through the European Social Fund, and under what's called Priority 5. And Priority 5 of the European Social Fund is that there's an increased capacity and capability across the public sector with a regional focus. And so I think that the challenge we have for this is to actually develop options and an approach to permanent sort of regional management sort of approach to using the landscape for these aspects. So the commitment we've made through that, through the partnership in bidding for this European Social Fund money, is that we develop a sort of regional focus on the management of landscape assets across the valleys. That we develop greater use of green space that are for personal choice and also with social prescribing, because there are immense health benefits to use of landscape, both mental and physical health. That we develop sort of increased skills capacity across the regional parks through sort of partnership working across all sectors. That the public sector policies are influenced, so that we work in partnership to influence what's coming out of Welsh Government and other policy developers, Public Health Wales and others, to ensure that it actually meets the needs of the people of the valleys and actually takes advantage of the opportunities we have for the landscape in the valleys. And then we develop options for what could be in place beyond beyond the summer of 2023 in terms of permanency for a valleys regional park approach, considering whether there is a case for a land designation and what that might be. That isn't likely to be a national park because of the various challenges that occur across the valleys in terms of aligning that with a national park designation, but could potentially be a new type of designation, or we need to consider how we get some sort of longevity and some sort of legal status to what we're doing within this. As you can imagine, the area we cover is from Torfaen in the east right the way across to the Amman and Glendraeth Valley in the west, and between effectively the Brecon Beacons National Park and the M4. So it's a vast area, and also the scope for what we cover could be sort of vast as well. So in terms of the team we have a core team of 6, which really requires then the fact that the partnership is developed and we work in partnership with third sector, private sector and our local authority and other public sector partners to influence and to develop. So we have actually focused in on some key things. So there are 3 key themes sitting underneath the Valleys Regional Park. One is landscape, culture and identity, recreation and well-being, and communities and enterprise. And within those, the priority areas we're looking at are closer to our food, so looking to support and develop local food growing and eco-literacy. Various sort of pilot projects or demonstrator projects we're developing with community groups around local access to land and food growing and so on, that with the intention that we pilot those and we evaluate those and look about how we can replicate that on a regional basis. Nurture and nature together, so developing volunteering skills based largely out of our Discovery Gateway sites, and I'll say more about where they are and what they are as we go through. Developing volunteering and also sort of partnership working across that region. Well-being through nature, so mental health and well-being support, not just sort of intervention and linking with primary care, but also preventative and so on. So trying to sort of get people using the landscape for physical and mental health and their own general well-being. And also looking to think about how we use green space for remote working. We're going to be piloting two pilots within 2 of our Discovery Gateway sites, one in Brynbach Park in Blaen y Gwent and one at Cleantech Owen in Carmarthenshire, where we develop remote working hubs, so where people can book in and work for the day rather than, as most of us have been doing, in the back bedroom or in our living room or kitchen tables and so on. And working in these places, it's got to be sort of good for the soul, good for well-being and so on, but also good for our green spaces and parks because they get used more. And then finally looking at placemaking, so looking at developing the valleys as a region in itself, both for tourism, for business and for recreation overall. breaking that down into some of the activities, the Valleys Regional Park Board is chaired by Councillor Hunt from Torfaen and contains the leaders of all of the local authorities within that partnership. So Councillor Marsden is a really strong advocate of the VRP approach, and is actually one of the strongest leaders in terms of supporting what we're doing and so on as we go across. Alongside the landscape cultural identity theme, key within that are the Discovery Gateway network. So that £7 million was invested in 12 sites across the valleys. Caerphilly actually have 3 of them: Cwm Carn, Caerphilly Castle and Penallta. And Penallta, I think, will be will actually be the flagship site in terms of the amount of money we've spent and what we've delivered for it. So Phil Griffiths has been sort of superb working with us in developing proposals for a new sort of visitor centre that'll sit in the entrance to Penallta Park between Nelson and Ystrad Mynach. And that will be a gateway to the park, will provide community facilities, and somewhere where people can actually sort of use cafe and some income to the park as well as access across the river and to the wider park. So that's looking to be developed. Cwm Carn have developed some really sort of ambitious sort of plans around some remote working stations and actually linking what's going on up in Cwm Carn with the NRW development of the Forest Drive and so on that side. And within Caerphilly Castle, they're looking to actually link the town to the green spaces around the castle and provide some additional information through digital boards and so on that complements the investments that's already going in through CADU into the facilities that are happening in the castle as a whole. Ecosystem enhancement. So there are area statements, and the valleys is covered by 3 NRW area statements, and the intention of the VRP is that we work through our Discovery Gateways and with our partners to support the delivery of that and development of ecosystems and skills and so on along that side, and then that we influence the development of Welsh Government policy. So things like national forests and how can we help to deliver some of that? How can VRP be used as a sort of platform for doing that? And we've recently been working quite closely with the Green Recovery Task Force and the Future Generations Commissioner's Office. And in a paper that's gone to New Welsh Government, the VRP is one of the key delivery arms proposed for potentially the new National Nature Service, which is looking to develop skills and capacity within sort of green employment and using green skills in order to develop sort of future jobs and future skills along that side. In terms of recovery and well-being, I think we're working closely with Cardiff University around development of green social prescribing using landscape instead of tablets in terms of mental and physical health, and actually identifying all of the complexity of what's already in place. There are lots and lots of organisations funded for doing these sort of things, and actually it's quite complex for providers and so on to understand what's in place. So we're going to be looking and working to try and simplify and map that and make sure that that's clear across the patch. Developing demonstrator projects around sort of food growing, schools, conservation, social prescribing and community engagement, and then working closely with health colleagues, Welsh Government departments and others to develop sort of an influence policy development in that side. On the community and enterprise side of things, we're looking to sort of work with the capital city region to develop a challenge fund which is related to green space, landscape type things, potentially food growing or bringing local food growers to market. Could be a various things, but actually work across the partnership to actually lead a challenge fund bid for that, while also looking to develop the sort of the valleys as a regional destination. providing support for some micro business and social enterprise, and actually developing networks of some of our sort of community social enterprises and other community groups, so that they learn from each other rather than having to reinvent the wheel every time they're trying to overcome issues. And then also sort of looking to sort of, again, on the business side of things to influence policy as it goes forward. You'll see here that this is a map which will shortly appear in all of our Discovery Gateway centres, and has been designed for us by Derek Baines, an artist from Swansea, who we commissioned to design and develop this. And that this presents the Valleys Regional Park in its whole. It provides links and QR codes to each of the websites and information on each of the Discovery Gateways right the way across the patch. Also links in our other green flag sites and Keep Wales tidy links within that, and that presents that. This map will be going up in each of the Discovery Gateways and a large notice board, and will be used across our social media and broader with our partners over the coming months. So that's something which again has only recently been finalised. Through the autumn last year, we carried out a green space survey, and unsurprisingly, there was a huge response in terms of people who had sort of found their green space and had sort of appreciated it, and we're actually planning to continue that and use that green outside space. And also a large amount of response was around the want to actually volunteer. We will have all seen that communities have really banded together during the COVID crisis to actually support each other and to develop that. And actually there's been a renewed focus on community renewal and looking after each other, which is really sort of good to see. You know, another one of the positives that have come out of a very, very challenging period. In supporting the Valleys Regional Park as a whole in those concepts, we've also have what we call the VRP Guardian scheme, which works alongside us. And this is a team of 8 people who were originally provided by Groundwork Wales, and I'm glad to say that Groundwork Wales have recently sort of been successful in securing the contract for the following 2 years. And this is the element of the project that's funded by the Rural Development Programme. And also it's complemented by other rural development programme investments, such as the Greater Gwent Green Grid, sorry, that Caerphilly have been involved with Torfaen, Blaenau Gwent and Monmouth on developing. And the intention here is to support the on-the-ground community engagement, community activities and so on. So we'll have 8 VRP Guardians working across the valleys, and they'll be carrying out activities, whether they be skills-based, whether they be well-being-based, whether they be landscape recovery and that ecosystem enhancement type activities. But they'll be provided for us by Groundwork Wales at the direction of my team as that's progressed. So that's a really valuable piece of resource that supports the work we're doing as we go forward. And finally, this just sort of confirms that partnership of the 10 local authorities within the capital city region, as well as Neath, Port Talbot, Swansea and Carmarthenshire. But also, I think what's important is NRW are a key partner, the health boards and Public Health Wales are key partners, as are our voluntary sector, third sector, community groups, and increasingly we need to increase the inclusion of some of our private sector organisations across as well. So I think that really sort of presents where we are. You'll see that we have our website, which is valleysregionalpark.wales, which links all of these things together and actually points people to the parks and other information that's there. We now lead on the Love the Valleys social media accounts, and we have our email address is a bridgend.gov email address. But what has to be recognised that we do work in partnership. So even though we're hosted by Bridgend, we actually work with all of the 13 partners, and I think Phil will be able to comment. But I think that partnership is developing nicely along the way, despite the challenges we've had over the last year or so. So that sort of completes my my presentation and the film. Happy to sort of take questions or be part of any discussion.
If I can put something, sorry to cut in across anybody, I'm very conscious of the time. Thank you very much indeed, Phil, for your presentation, which obviously opened a new door, hopefully opened a new door for us to see what's going on around us. But thanks for your presentation. I'm conscious of the time, and obviously we've still got some items ahead of us, which could take up some time. But if there are any questions, if they perhaps could be very brief, and
Yes, I've got a question.
they'll respond briefly. Let's see. I've got a hands up from Mike Poynton.
Hello, Phil. My name is Mike Poynton. I represent Gwent Ornithological Society. I can see what you're doing, and it sounds a really good idea. You quite correctly mentioned that the connect with nature is so important for people's mental and physical health. What particular plans are there to protect the wildlife?
Working very, very closely with NRW around the area statements. I think within the team we've got a convener who leads on the landscape cultural identity, and this is a guy called Dan Locke, who's come to us with a really strong ecological background, and Phil will be able to sort of say, confirm where he is. He was a park manager within Bringarw Country Park. And I think a big part of what Dan will be doing will be looking at environmental improvements, working across the partnership to ensure that the sort of area statement and the work that's going on around the well-being of the landscape is paramount. And so that Dan is very much one for for ensuring that we get meadows and we get pollinators, and there's actually helping things like the work that's going on up on the common land, not just within those Discovery Gateway parks. And certainly, Mike, if you wanted me to put you in touch with Dan to have more of a chat in detail around the sort of work he's planning, then I'd be happy to.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil.
I would be interested, yeah.
Yeah. Eleanor Williams.
Yes, Lorraine Howells, actually.
Okay.
I'm a farmer on Gesiger and Merthyr Common, and as you probably know, we recently had an SMS bid accepted to do some work on the common.
Yeah.
Whatever we try to do is destroyed by people with their off-road vehicles, tipping rubbish, fly grazing, fly tipping, etc., etc. You didn't mention, I don't think, in your address, anything about educating people how to look after their landscape. We've got a wonderful landscape up on Gesiger Common. If it was only looked after, we've got a warden who's working his socks off to make this scheme a success. We haven't had much help from the planning inspectorate or from Welsh government at the moment, but the local authority have been marvellous. The AMs and everybody have supported us. But something needs to be done to educate the mindless masses who just want to destroy our environment, not help to improve it.
No, I agree with you, and there's a vast amount within our plan, and rural crime around fly tipping, around off-roading and so on is certainly within that. And just to say, Mark up on the common is doing a superb job, and we're working quite closely. Mark is one of our sort of case studies. So we've been up on the common with Mark, seen everything Mark's doing, his volunteering programs, the work he's trying to do to stop some of this stuff and actually tidying up. And I know Caerphilly and Merthyr are very supportive of the work that Mark is doing. So yes, it's certainly on our radar, and we've had various discussions with the local authorities and with fire and so on around the fire brigade, and we're actually working with the public service boards as well on some of this stuff. But yeah, it's certainly within our plans, and it'll form part of that plan going forward, because it's also clearly recognised that this is a key concern to much of the population of the valleys as well. So it's something we have to address.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. I hope that answers your question. If there are no further questions, I can't see anything. Any hands up?
Andrew would like to ask a question, I think, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Andrew. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's not a question, it's more a comment. In the video showed at the start of your presentation, I think it's irresponsible to show someone trying to light a fire or barbecue, especially in light of all the grass fires we have in the area.
Okay, just a point that was it wasn't an individual just lighting that. That was a bushcraft course that was being run by a guy called Martin Broughton up in Treherbert in Welcome to Our Woods. And so it was controlled, and it was but I will take that point, Andrew, and I will pass that back.
Thank you.
If I could come in on that, Chair, it's I'm with you on this, Andrew. It's something I have endless conversations with my rangers about, whether our publicity should show fires with the very issues that you raised. But as Phil says, it was very much a bushcraft event type thing on there. We tried to show how perhaps the services across the local authorities run the various things in the countryside, the sort of the promotional side of that. But I'm fully on board with your mindset on that one.
I know that's it's bushcraft, but this is the impression he was given.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's Ali Evans, very briefly. I think we'll be running out of time for a lot of the forthcoming items on the agenda.
Thanks, Phil. I think I'm following you on Twitter, and you've been for a bike ride this morning, if I've got the right account. So
yes, yeah,
well done, promoting safe use of the countryside. Just very quickly, in terms of interactive travel, we've been talking about this morning, and linking into this Valleys regional plan. Do you think there is a positive view in terms of the Rhondda Tunnel being reopened? It was something I was made aware of a few weeks ago by one of the charity members there. So
yeah,
what's the tie-in?
I think certainly there's a positive view within Welsh Government. I think they've supported and funded some additional funding for that. They've obviously had a few challenges over the last year with COVID, but interestingly enough, I've had an email off them this morning where I've been invited to be lowered down by Mine Rescue into the tunnel. So we're going to go and have a look at it. So I think there is a positive view of that, and I think that both the Rhondda Tunnel, the Cwmbach Tunnel, that you know, it's something that I think is on the radar. Something we have had done. We had a report done by Sustrans recently, which looked at our Discovery Gateway sites, looked at the National Cycle Network and active travel routes that join them up. One thing we'll be looking to develop over the coming sort of period will be to develop a valleys-wide sort of cycling, walking, bridleway route that will allow us to join up the Discovery Gateways, and in doing that, it'll join up some of our other great green spaces as well. I've just noticed David online. Sorry, David, but I did reference the earlier work we did. So we need to catch up at some point as well. I think it would be useful. Just too much going on, I think.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't get onto the Microsoft Teams. Is not my favorite this morning. It's failed me in about 3 meetings, but I caught the end of it, and it sounds like things are going really well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speak to you soon, mate.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. If there's no more, does anybody have any further points or questions that they wish to?
Andrew's got his hand up. I'm not sure. Are you done, Andrew? Yeah, he's done. Andrew's done. If I can, Chair, I'd like to thank Phil for coming and doing the presentation as well. And I hope the forum can see how various things of the web are being tied together, and VRP, to use an acronym of which you will have a list coming through what's coming through the Valleys Regional Park, is one of our key supporters and bodies that we can implement things through. We're lucky we've got Dave Llewellyn here, who's been actively involved in the VRP from an early stage, and is now involved in the health side of things. So we're getting the health spin in terms of the the green space usage and access. We've got plenty of representation in terms of our wildlife and landscape that's going on, which is perhaps my forte. So we've got a fairly good mix of what's going on here now, and things are beginning to come together. Not least in terms of the gateway sites that we've got. Penalta perhaps being the flagship, and these gateway sites are going to be hubs for taking people out into the wider green environment. So there's going to be calls on our access networks as part of that. Clive's presentation earlier on, of course, of active travel. Phil works closely on these issues along with Sustrans. So there's a fairly strong and robust partnership beavering away in the background, which I hope is also influencing the types of grant work that, grant incomes that we're getting coming in. So it's actually, despite austerity, it's actually looking quite rosy in terms of what we're getting, particularly in the Gwent area. But I'd just like to conclude with two things. Firstly, well, both comments to Phil really on it. Firstly, in terms of the Rhondda Tunnel, I would check the invite is also to hoist you back out rather than leave you down there.
Yeah, just they want to bury me, I think. Yeah.
And secondly, obviously, boys' rules apply again. Like, do you know what I mean? There's a pint behind the bar for you. Preferably don't take me out in Merthyr again.
Yeah, I think we're catching up on the 15th, Phil, so we could do it in person if you want to buy that pint. Yeah.
Fair enough. Thanks very much for the presentation, Phil.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Right, that concludes item on the agenda number 7, council representatives. I think according to the agenda, Phil, you're going to take a lead on this.
That'll be me, Chair. Yes. I was going to reintroduce, should I say, Councillor Nigel George, who's going to be the council representative on the Local Access Forum. There's been a little bit of a shake-up in terms of councillor responsibility, and John Ridgewell is no longer a cabinet member, so he won't be sitting on this on this forum. So I was going to, if you recall, we were putting John forward as being the vice chair for Mike for the LAF. Obviously that won't happen now, so I was going to be saying, well, perhaps we should put Nigel George forward as the vice chair, but he's not here, despite having promised me thinking he was going to be able to make it today. So perhaps we'll move that one, if you don't mind, Chair, to the next agenda meeting when we can sort you with a vice chair. But my thoughts on that, unless there's anybody who feels differently or wishes to be vice chair themselves, is that we put Councillor Nigel George forward as the vice chair for endorsement at the next meeting. So please, if anyone's got any other thoughts on that, let me know, because anybody can do it. It's just been sort of historic that the vice chair has tended to be the council representative. So that's all I wanted to say on that, Chair. But it might, unless there's any questions on that, it kind of takes me through to the next agenda item, which is the sort of rights of way cabinet committee that I wanted to speak about. So unless there's any questions, I'll move straight on to that one.
Yeah, screen's yours, Phil.
Thanks. Mention the word screen, and perhaps I should actually turn my camera on when I'm speaking. Sorry about that. I am actually here, and for those of you who can see, I'm actually not in West Wales, and I was hoping to be, but there we are. I'm going to just mention the Rights of Way Cabinet Committee. That is the formal committee that the council's got for Rights of Way matters, and it's kind of a sister to this forum, and that's where we put all of our statutory recommendations and where the council makes its formal policy regarding rights of way. Now, it's made up of 5 cabinet members, and I thought that I would give a quick update on this, as the composition has changed following the revised cabinet last month. So we had two new representatives on there in terms of the 5 members who are there. Firstly, Nigel George has gone on there to replace John Ridgewell. Councillor George knows the ropes because he's been on this before. But secondly, we've lost Councillor Colin Gordon for a number of reasons, and he's been replaced by Councillor Andrew Whitcomb, who comes from the Abercarn ward. So just to let you know that there have been changes in our Rights of Way committee, and those are 2 new members on it. That's all I wanted to say on that, Chair.
Right, thanks, Phil. Right, concludes that. Number 9, item number 9, LAF standing orders. I think he's got your name against it, Phil.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Could have run straight to that one as well, sorry. If you remember the last committee forum meeting, I gave an update on sort of proposals that were being put to Welsh governments in terms of changing how LAFs operate. This is only a minor thing that's come through, and I put it on the agenda really because I just want to gauge your opinion on it. There's all sorts of sub-legislation going on at the moment due to COVID and standing orders, but legally the local access forum is supposed to meet in person. That's part of the legislation. Now that's been suspended, of course, because of COVID, and the latest amendments come through to this is that we are still allowed to meet virtually until the end of this calendar year. Well, I think there's an expectation that we will be meeting again in person. That's all subject to change, of course. But I wanted to take have a general guide on whether, we've got a meeting coming up in September and one in December also, whether you would prefer to do these meetings in person or whether you'd rather do them virtually. I just really wanted to sort of to gauge this and how to play it with any changes that may come in the legislation. But we can now meet we can have our next 2 meetings virtually if that's what you want to do. Is really the question. Do you want to meet virtually for the rest of the year, I guess, is the question.
Anybody wish to contribute? I know obviously it's Nigel Yates. Yeah, go on. You're
I think it'll be quite acceptable to meet virtually for the next part of this year, because I think COVID is still lurking there, and I think it won't be till the end of the year where we really know where we stand. But as for meetings going forward, I think it's good to get together. It's not that we meet that regularly, and I don't see anything wrong in meeting person to person in the future.
Okay, so that's keep it virtual for the year, but start off as soon as COVID, back in person as soon as sort of COVID regs allow thereafter.
Yes, that's what I think. Yes.
Okay. Maggie?
I've actually found hearing much better doing it virtually. On the other hand, interjecting is harder. So, I mean, I don't care either way, but the clarity of the sound is superb.
I'll second that, Maggie.
Okay, David Hale.
Yeah, can I suggest that maybe we should look or ask, would it be possible to have a mixture that those who are able to get into a meeting do so, but those perhaps who can't and would also then reduce travel can still meet virtually and have a setup in the committee meeting in the venue where a virtual members can join the meeting.
Certainly worth looking. I'm not sure the technicalities of doing. I imagine it's not that I sometimes, along with others, that conclusion. But certainly something we can look into. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Obviously, the reception here, it was the call was breaking up. So but I'm sure obviously we've picked up all the points there. Yeah, I'm happy to go. The chairs, I'm happy to go either way. But I think yes, in view of the previous comment that it's still lurking around the corner, and yeah, perhaps continue to the end of the year and then go meet in Tipyn Arthur in the start of next year, our first meeting next year. Any further contributions?
I'd like to make one contribution. I fully agree with Maggie. I find these meetings much easier to hear what's going on, being a little bit Mutt and Jeff in my old age. One other thing is, will we get more representatives from other organisations if we continue virtually, because they don't have to travel a long way to come to us, and they can pop in and out of a meeting? Just a thought.
Good point.
We're quorate in terms of the numbers of, which is always my concern, that we meet our legislative guidelines on that. If you've got, have you got anyone in mind, Lorraine, who you think should be invited above and beyond who we've got?
Not really, Phil, but people from Countryside Council, NRW, whatever, they may be based in Mid Wales and make an excuse, oh, sorry, we can't go down there because it's 2 hours to drive down, an hour or two in the meeting, a couple of hours to drive back. But if we met them virtually, it'd pop into the meeting, give you a contribution, and pop out of the meeting. I'm not thinking of anybody in particular, but yourself, Phil, if you've got to go a long way to travel to a meeting, you think twice. Sometimes, is it worth me going because I've got other more important things to do back here? Whereas if it was pop in for half an hour, you do it.
Yeah, it has to be doable to my mind, because I know Welsh Government are looking at these sort of composite type rights of way meetings for the planning inspectorate. So it's got to be doable. I'll make some inquiries with our sort of committee services to see what the protocol of doing it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mike next, and then Dave. Oh, actually, Ali, were you up? I'll go Ali first. I think it was up first. Ali, Mike, Dave, in this order, please.
Very quickly, yes, I think a blended approach is a good option going forward, and it is achievable, Phil. I've done it myself through work, so I can tell you that you can have people in the room and link up to digital as well. And I just wanted to reiterate put my safety hat on here. I think the guide at the moment is to, unless it's absolutely necessary, meetings should take place digitally. So I think we should comply with those guidance rules, as Councillor Yates said, for the rest of this year.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it Mike?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to agree with the last two speakers, actually, and from a convenience point of view and also from a green point of view, so we're not having to travel when we don't need to. So making these meetings virtual, or part of it, if not totally all of them, is a very good idea in my view. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. Is there anybody else who's...
Dave is next.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I concur. I think with David and Mike and Ali, I think that mixing them would be really good once the time is available to do that, or able to do that rather. The only thing I would say is, and it's been a problem of mine this morning, is I think Microsoft Teams is one of the worst methods for doing these meetings to a certain extent. And if councils could get their act together and get on Zoom, which is far better a platform in my opinion, and is far more amenable to community members, etc. as well. But that's just my bias. But it's taken me about an hour and a half this morning to get on Teams, and I just think it's a very poor platform in comparison with Zoom. And the blended approach, I think, is the right way forward, at least for the meantime as well.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Yeah, I go. My wife much prefers using Zoom, but the council, I understand, has got a policy that we won't use it because there's been some hacking going on it or something previously. That's why we have to use Teams. That's the official one at the moment. Whether it'll change or not, I don't know, Dave. But so general I think the general consensus here is that we meet virtually for the rest of the calendar year, and then we look for blended meetings thereafter.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that.
Yep. Okay, thanks, Phil. Item number 10, rights of way work, and I think Phil, you've got the floor or the screen again.
No, I'm going to delegate this one. This is Andy Fleming, Chair.
Oh, Andy Fleming, welcome.
Okay.
Screen's yours.
Hello, everybody. I'm Andy Fleming, Rights of Way Officer for Caerphilly Borough Council. Just a quick update. First of all, I'll start with our website, which we introduced about 2 months ago. Stefan Denbury, my assistant, has spent a hell of a lot of time with the IT technician putting this website together. This website is now up and running. There still are 1 or 2 hiccups with it because when it was put together, our original definitive maps, or the definitive maps, I should say, all right, whatever they used to mark the lines on the map were thick, either whether it was pencil or crayon or whatever. So these lines are on the electronic map, all right, but it might deviate slightly, okay? So we're having phone calls and people are saying the line is not on the line that it says on the map, etc., etc. If there are any issues within your clubs, your walking groups, etc., etc., all they need to do is ring us up and we can put them right, or they can come, well, they can't at the moment, but eventually they'll be able to come in and have a look at the definitive map and compare it with the electronic map. But it is work in progress, like I said. But I've had a lot of good comments about the website as well, because there's a lot of information that people can gain, and gather, etc. All right, just by getting onto the website itself. All right, and it's there in front of you, instead of trying to get hold of us all the time when we're busy and we can't contact you back. You can get hold of us because we're out on site or whatever. Okay then, the lockdown. Since the lockdown has started, we've had a lot of issues on our rights of way because we've had a lot more people using the right of way network and the open space network. And I can't say because of that reason, but during that period, we've had a lot of claims, people claiming injuries that have happened on rights of way. I can't put a finger on why that's happened, but I know a lot more people have been out walking, cycling, horse riding, etc., etc. What I will ask of you is when you go back to your walking groups, etc., etc., please can you ask them when they are out on a walk, a horse ride or a cycle ride, if they can contact us if they got any issues on them on that rights of way network, because I've got 850 kilometers of rights of way. There's only me and Stefan Denbury, so we can't cover the whole network at the moment. So I rely on people like yourselves as my eyes and ears out on the rights of way network. So please encourage the people in your walking groups, associations like the Ramblers, Open Spaces, etc., all right, to ring us up or email us ASAP, so that we know about them issues, and maybe it'll prevent all these claims that are coming in, coming into us all the time. And the other thing I would like to say as well, we've had a request from Oliver Wicks. I assume some of you already know him from the Ramblers Association. He sent a request in to have, if you want to, labels designed for the Cumbrian route that goes from South Wales to North Wales. He's now sent them in. I received them yesterday. I've sent them up to Phil to have a quick look at them. But what he wants to do is label these with the on the Cumbrian way. They are decent ones, and they're part of the Adventure Smart UK. I don't know if you are aware of what Adventure Smart UK is, but it's a rollout of the safety campaign Adventure Smart Wales, which was launched in 2018. I won't go any deeper into that, but if you go onto the website, all right, which is adventuresmart.uk, okay, it gives you some very, very important information, because the main aims of that is to promote safe adventures, to promote access to good information, to share their knowledge about adventure, to help tourism business, to create engaging content, and to be innovative within the area of Wales. Yes, you can go to the website. I tested the website out this morning, all right, before I gave you the information. It is up and running, it is working, and you can get on there straight away. And that's about it from me as far as rights of way concerned. Are there any questions?
Maggie, and then Mike. Maggie Thomas, and then Mike Poynton.
Stefan got in touch with me and told me about the online definitive map.
Yes.
And it's absolutely great. You know, I've got paper copies of the definitive map of Islwyn, and only Islwyn, in my cupboard to the right of me, and they've got very tattered over the years. This is an amazing resource, and thank you very much. I can't, Stefan also said, or I saw it somewhere on the website, that we should be able to see all Section 147 applications.
Right.
Now, I think I've got that right, where landowners have applied to put extra limitations up, and I can't find that.
Right. As I said to you, the website is a work in progress, but from memory, don't quote me on this, I don't think that we need to put on the website any requests for application 147. Sorry, section 147. What we do need to put on the website is the people that have already got a section 147, not people who are applying for section 147. But don't quote me on that. But I'll definitely get back to you, Maggie. Okay.
Okay, that's a misunderstanding then. Maybe a misunderstanding on my behalf. Okay,
yeah, not a problem.
Thank you.
Mike.
Thanks, Chair. Andrew, just very quickly, you were saying about contact. How do we contact you?
On the website.
Sorry, on the Caerphilly.
On the Caerphilly website.
Yeah, right. Okay, then.
My number's on there, and Stefan Denby's number on it is on there.
So, and we'd look on that under rights of way, do we?
Yeah.
Once you get onto it.
Once you get onto it, you'll see on there that it's got my number. It probably won't have my name, if I remember right. It's got my number, the rights of way officer's number, and the assistant right of way officer's number.
Okay, thank you very much. The other thing was, you said about claims. What kind of claims were you talking about?
We've had people falling over on public rights of way, footpaths, etc. I've had a horse get his hoof stuck down an hole on one of our wooden bridges. It's like I say, we work on a reactive behaviour because we can't cover the whole of our network. So we rely on people ringing us up and telling us, right, there's an issue with this bridge. As soon as I know there's an issue there, either myself,
about it,
myself, Stefan, or the warden can actually go there. And if it is an issue, a health and safety issue, then we can get it fenced off straight away. Okay. If I'm not aware of them, all right, I can't do nothing about it. Myself and Stefan can't cover 850 kilometres. I doubt very much whether I'll do that in my working lifetime because no, but I've got other work to carry out. Do you know what I mean?
Thank you very much.
So I rely, and if you could pass that back to your friends, your associations, etc. If you see an issue, a pothole or whatever, please get in contact with us, or get on our website and report it to us. And trust me, I'll try and send someone out. If they can't get out, I go out myself. All right, so it's not an issue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. My question is, Andrew, what is the website to access these rights of way? What is the full title of it, please?
It's bloody hell, I can't remember.
If I can interject there, Andrew, if you just go to www.caerphilly.gov.uk, Mike, and then in the search bar, if you enter rights of way and then click on search, it takes you to the page where there's a plethora of information. The guy's contact details are there, the definitive map links. There's even a link to report an issue with right of way, which automatically emails their central inbox. So it's the main Caerphilly website, but if you put right of way into the search bar and click search, it'll take you straight there. All right.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed for that. Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ali.
Right. Anybody else? Any further comments? Anything to contribute? Thank you, Andrew, for bringing us up to date on there. And right, close that one. And we are rushing down to the bottom of the page. Right away, grants. And that's not somebody's name. That's hopefully money which we're going to get in. Phil.
Thank you, Chair. I think this would be a dual effort on the basis I haven't really got anything to report on grants. I haven't submitted any new grant applications. There's been no real calls for any access grants at the moment from my sort of funding streams. The only thing I will perhaps say is Welsh Government have finally approved one of our regional bids, which have been in. That was a thing that Phil Lewis mentioned about the Gwent Green Grid. That's finally been approved, having been in the system for about 2 years. And there is access works involved in that, including having a training scheme for rights of way apprentices, shall we say, spread across the county of Gwent. The only other grant I'm aware of, and perhaps you can interject here, Andy, because I know it's something you've been working on, is the stuff you've had from Welsh Government lately.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, I put an application in for some funding from Welsh Semi-Government. We used to get ROIT funding up until about 2 years ago, Rights of Way Improvement Plan funding, and they stopped that. Now all of a sudden they've given us this offer of funding, so I put in an application for that. I did have a return to say we'll be offered X amount of money. It's probably through now, but I've had a week off this month and I've still got a lot of emails to catch up on. To say that we've been offered funding and it needs to be used up by next April. Now, a lot of the funding I put in for was a small pockets of money because I've known over the winter period and last winter period, certainly a year ago, the winter period, we had a lot of bridges washed out. I've had a lot of footpaths damaged, water damage, etc., etc. So I put in funding for that type of work and no big expensive work, so I can get the small jobs done, i.e. the small footbridges and the washed out footpaths done, hopefully over the next 12 months. And hopefully in my emails or in the next week or two, we'll get that. I'll get that letter saying that to go ahead with the work. All right, Phil?
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Andy. I think that's about it for grants. If there's any questions.
Okay, if there's none, thanks, Andrew, for that.
Well, just before you log off a minute, the one thing I will say is I've heard rumours, and this is only rumours, that we might be able to apply for this grant again next year. So what I will do, if we are going to get this grant next year, okay, I will get the LAF involved as well. Okay, so I will mention at the meeting just before, I will mention the work I feel needs doing. All right, but if you, as LAF members, feel there is other more important work that needs doing, all right, I will put that in the offer letter that when I apply for this funding. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Maggie, you just flagged up wanting to get a point to raise.
I can't imagine you're going to say yes to this, but if there is more funding, is there any chance of the lovely bridge in Crosskeys that was washed away being replaced? It was washed away, I think, in October or November 2019, and it links, it goes over the River Sarawi, and it goes into the Black Vein area. I can't remember the particular footpath that goes over.
Maggie, it's a footpath that's been washed away, is it?
It's an old iron bridge.
Oh, the big long one.
Yeah.
The one that had the electric cables attached to it.
I don't know. I never noticed those.
Right, that's what's happened there is our engineers have taken over that.
No, the one that was actually washed away, well, had to be taken out before it was washed away.
Yeah, that's the same one. Our engineers have taken.
Can I interject here for clarity? Is this the one below Full Moon Cottage?
Sorry?
Is this the bridge below Full Moon Cottage?
No, it's not. Phil.
Yeah, okay.
No, sorry.
Oh.
It's one further south.
Okay, so I know in Full
It
Moon
would be
Cottage,
about
there's building
200
the bridge.
yards away from the one you're talking about.
No, it's the Phil, it's the big one. It is the one the engineers had to take away, and they are going to replace it. But if you remember, Phil, the engineers gained some money, and they were told they had 2 years to use that money up because of the COVID engagement, etc. But then they dropped it to a 12-month, so there's a bit of an issue there at the moment. Are you aware of that, Phil?
Yeah, I know I've got some problems of my own on other non-access related issues with that. But all I was going to say is I know we have contractors on site replacing the bridge below Full Moon Cottage at the moment, because I had a tete-a-tete with engineers quite recently on that, and they are on site.
Yeah.
No. It's it leads from the Newtown area of Crosskeys over the River Sarawi, and then that links with a footbridge over the A467.
No, that's not what I was thinking of. Okay.
No. I mean, I'm not going to nag about it, but it would be lovely if it could be. One of my favourite walks.
Maggie, I'll get back to you on that one, but I'm sure that's the bridge I've been on about with our engineers.
Okay.
I know we got one in that area that our engineers are dealing with, because we couldn't do it ourselves because it's too big. So the engineers took over, and they were going to use that grant money. They had a bad weather grant money from Welsh Assembly Government, but they were told they had 2 years to use that money up. Then Welsh Assembly Government dropped it down to 1 year. But I'll definitely get back to you on that one. I've got it in my notes here, and I'll give you a ring, or I'll send you an email. Okay.
Right, thanks for that. I see, June Morgan, you've got something for Andrew?
Hello, thank you. Am I right in thinking that you had funding for the last financial year, 2021, off Welsh Government as well?
We was going to have some funding off them, but because of the COVID pandemic, I wasn't able to get people on site. I wasn't able to engage with engineers or contractors, etc., etc. So we didn't have any funding off them in the end, and probably that's why they've given us funding this year. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that answers your point. Right, thanks very much indeed for that. Thanks, Andrew. We move on to number 12, the challenge walk, and we've got Phil is going to introduce this item.
I'll take it. There's not much of way of introduction in all honesty, Chair. I gave an update on the challenge walk, which is our annual long distance walk, at the last meeting, saying it'd been cancelled the year before and had been postponed this year, with a tentative date put in for the 10th of July. This is just to confirm that it will be running this year, and the books are open. I think we've already got over 100 people registered for this, albeit over a staggered period of a number of hours to run that. And our volunteers coming forward to help on the day are there in their legions, including Ali, I have to say, and her team. So to let you know, if you or any of your groups or friendship groups want to get in on the walk, the numbers are likely to be more limited than previous years, because I can't see full restrictions being lifted. However, there are places available. We're still taking bookings at the moment, should anybody want to register for it. That's the 10th of July, and it'll be being held in the north of the Rumney Valley this year.
Thanks, Phil. Did Andrew wanted to make a contribution there? Not Andrew, from the health board, is it? Sorry, I've forgotten your name, sir. David. Yep.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. Phil, just with regard to that, that's really good news that, that's going ahead, the walk, etc., the event rather. And I obviously been in touch with Brian. I think one thing I'd really like to push on that, and I know probably not too possibly relevant to this group, but to get really local people involved, because picking up the point that was made earlier on about Gelligair Common, is that we really want to make sure that local people are involved in these walks, and they then get to understand and appreciate what's on their doorstep, and then, you know, obviously start to look after what's around them. That's not to suggest that they are any more guilty than anybody else, but I do think we really need to make a push on, if it's in the Upper Rumney Valley, we've now got 2 walking groups there, and we really do need to link up with those to ensure that local people are fully engaged in the sort of events that are going to improve their health, but also ensure that the environment is protected as well.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to have my camera. Yeah, I quite agree with you, Dave. The North Rumney Valley Walk tends to be the quietest of the 3 routes we normally do, but we do advertise it up there, particularly via the school children and their parents. It goes from Idris Davis, comprehensive school. It's going to be different this year because normally we get the sort of mixing indoors and we use the school halls and that. It's all being done outdoors this time under tarpaulins. The advertising through Brian that he does is fairly widespread, and I think he's got all of his walking groups up there, particularly the Neutrodiga mob, who are probably our most active, most northern, bigly, strongly active group. So I'm hoping Brian's doing his background on that. He has kissed the Blarney Stone in his current life, hasn't he? So I think I don't think he's shy on coming forward and trying to get sort of local people involved. But I agree with what you say. And as an aside, really, it's reassuring that Nick Wax have come in and they've sponsored the event again this year, which is they're a big company, and to get something involved in the valleys is a pretty big plus for us, in all honesty.
Thanks, Phil. June Morgan, you've got something you want to ask David or comment on? No? Oh, you're still switched off. I don't know if you can.
No, that's fine.
Sorry,
okay.
no, I'm fine, thanks.
The hand's gone now.
Okay, right. Thanks for that, David, and hopefully we'll have some weather like we've got today for the walk, because I'm sure it's not the best of weather to be walking in when it's all chucking down when the rain is horizontal. Which moves us on to item number 13. Any other business? There is one item that's already been raised for any other business. Maggie Thomas, I think you've got something. You had some questions for NRW. Obviously, I'm conscious of the time. Perhaps if you wanted to, if you got about condense it to about 10 minutes, and then we can move on.
I can condense it to a lot less than 10 minutes.
Thank you very much.
It's just comments that I would have made had I attended the last meeting, specifically to Bob Campbell. Things that I read in the minutes, I felt in a way that Bob was being slightly disingenuous about what's going on. What was mentioned was looking at rights of way that are now not on the legal line and making an application for a diversion so that the footpaths or the rights of way will be put, the legal line and the used line will, once again become the same thing. Well, I've been nagging Bob for quite a few years to get this done. I know it's not Cwmcarn, but in Havatuda Valley. But for decades, NRW, when they install haul roads, they have interfered with public rights of way. And quite understandably, the haul roads are going to stay there permanently. Those rights of some of those rights of way that have been interfered with are no longer usable. That there's never ever, to my knowledge, been any applications to divert so that there are usable rights of way again. So what I would like to know is At what stage in the process is Bob with these applications? What paths, are there any applications in at the moment? And which footpaths or which rights of way are being dealt with? The other thing is the way he described what was going on in Cwm Carn. And he said, you know, clearing of walkways or footpaths. I've been, you know, quite hardworking, nagging Bob to get footpaths cleared. Not just Bob, you know, even in a public meeting before COVID. When we were told about all the wonderful plans for new bike trails, you know, I must admit, I lost it a little bit. And I said, we can't even get you to reinstate your rights of way or to clear rights of way or to put signage on footpaths. So with Bob saying, we're doing this and we're doing that, a local bloke, Rob Southall, and I have really been trying to get NRW to give other rights of way the same treatment that they are giving to bike trails. Signage to let cyclists know that they're not allowed to use footpaths. Signage, not only signage, but to put some limitations there so that you know, the cyclists can't go down on very, very steep footpaths. And the last thing is I am really, really concerned about where illegal bike trails have been put. On Medart, the mountain behind me, I'm not particularly bothered that there are illegal bike trails. What I'm bothered is the fact that these illegal bike trails cross public rights of steeply, and the bikers just hurtle down them, and they're putting walkers at risk. I am told that there is a big discussion about what bike trails have to be got rid of, what bike trails may be allowed to stay. But meanwhile, I think there should be limitations put on these bike trails so that when they meet a forest road or when they meet a public footpath, the bikers have to stop because local walkers are staying away. They're not writing in and complaining, they're staying away. Local walkers are at danger.
Okay. Thanks, Maggie, for that contribution. Perhaps we could, at a later date, invite Bob to take forward your comments. Has anybody else got? We lost sound, have we? Has anybody else got any comments or any other business?
I think the only comment I would make, and Andy, if you'd like to jump in and say how many applications we've got in from NRW at the moment, but by and large, you know, pre-application, all we get off them, Maggie, is, you know, they come in, they show us their sort of wide-scale felling plans. You know, I have discussions not so much with Bob Campbell, but sort of the Wales managers on where they're coming in to do felling. You know, particularly when there's sort of country parks or the like involved. But these are large scale maps, you know, covering, you know, certainly South Wales, and of course they've been bullied with Photofra, bullied into doing a lot of work earlier than they thought they would be. And in their defence, I think they've had to bring some contractors in. But I am hearing what you're saying, and it's not only you that's saying it. So it is a very live issue. But if you can come in, Andy, and say how many applications we've had in from them, because I know we have had applications.
Yeah, it's not so much applications. We've had discussions with them, Phil. Stefan is heavily involved. As you're aware, we had a big discussion with Natural Resources Wales because, like Maggie said, they were putting their own routes in there and they were destroying the rights of way. There's certain areas in Caerphilly now that them rights of way have been put back, but we are still fighting with them. But what I will say about the drive itself, the drive is we are in discussions with them, and once the drive opens in about 5 to 6 weeks, I'm led to believe. All right, the lady that's actually in charge will be going over to the rights of way in that area. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, none of them rights of way will be shut down. None of them rights of way will be diverted unless an official diversion order is applied for. All right, once that official diversion order is applied for, you will definitely be consulted, okay, before it goes to the committee, and that's the rules and regulations that we apply to. All right, so as far as I'm concerned, so as far as I'm going to tell you now, all right, there's no diversion orders, there's no stopping up orders, all right, and if they do come in, okay, or sorry, if they are applied for, you'll be one of the first, all right, to be consulted. But like I said to you, in about 5 to 6 weeks, from what I've heard, the drive will be reopened. Once that drive is reopened, all right, then the lady that's in charge, I can't think of her name at the moment, but the lady that's in charge of that, say again?
Gemini,
that's the one. All right, Gemini will then be taking on the rights of way, okay, and we will go from there. But I am aware, and Phil is aware, of the issues that are around the drive itself, with bikers, with people on foot, etc., etc.
Can I just say that it's not only the drive, it's
I know about the Medart
the
as
illegal
well.
trails coming down from the Forest Road down onto the Canal Towpath at Green Meadow Bridge.
Okay.
There are goodness knows how many, and Risker Riders are advertising extensively on Facebook and Instagram for more and more riders. And oddly enough, when you think about the conversation we had earlier, and someone said cyclists have got to learn to let walkers know when they're coming. Well, these guys do, but it's usually F off. It's frightening.
Okay, not a problem, Maggie. I've got all that on board. I know about the Medart area itself and the canal, etc. But I'll definitely get back to you on that one, and I'll try and find out the date, the official opening date of the drive. Okay.
If I can just make a comment, obviously the tree felling is extensive throughout South Wales. Perhaps Phil would know, or are the councils experiencing similar problems with their own rights of way in their own areas? You know, with the NRW's response reaction and to this. I know it's outside of our own area, but you know, from general experience.
No, it's not unique to Caerphilly, Chair. Wherever there's this widespread forestry clearance going on, that the issues are exactly the same. I think in Caerphilly, we're perhaps particularly badly hit by the amount of larch we're having felled, the magnitude of the works taking place, but also in terms of and I know and I appreciate it's far wider than Cwm Carn, but of course we've got probably South Wales' most active hub. In terms of potential conflicts of bikes and walkers anyway, frankly, for what goes on there, yet alone having all the tree felling on top of it. So it seems like a Caerphilly problem, but it's not. It's spread right across well, I speak to my colleagues in the South Wales valleys more than anywhere else, and it's certainly across the valleys.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that, Phil. Anybody else got any other thing that they wish to raise? Right, just one point, little observation. I'm sure you probably had the emails. One of our members or participants had a change of name on the email address. Anybody notice that? And that's our friend and hardworking member of the staff is Charlotte.
Yeah.
And I believe she recently got married, and also I understand she may be leaving the committee services. Phil, did you want to expand on that or just add to it?
I'm not sure how I want to expand it. No, she hasn't married me. If that was although she's not on screen, grimacing away in the background. No, well, congratulations to Charlotte. I know it's been it perhaps not quite what she wanted, not in terms of getting married, but in terms of COVID, and that has had an effect on what was going on. But my main message was, of course, to thank Charlotte for her first-rate service that she's offered this forum openly. Yeah. I know she'll be sadly missed. As I understand, this is a convent she's going across, or a 2-year placement into transforming Caerphilly. So she's transformed herself over the last couple of months, and they've now to transform the county borough. So it's a 2-year spot there. I strongly suspect if she does her job as well as she's done it for us in the forum, we won't be seeing her coming back here anyway. That they'll know a good thing when they've got it. So I'd like to thank Charlotte for her first-rate service that she's offered us. She's helped me out on many an occasion. So I really, words don't really express the gratitude I have there. So I don't know if Charlotte wants to come up onto the screen herself to actually make herself visible at this point. Probably blushing.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Very, very embarrassed, but I appreciate those kind words from you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Charlotte.
Yeah. All the best for the future.
Thank you all.
Right. I've got nothing else I wish to add or raise. Phil, is there anything that you can think of that I've missed?
Not from my side. The next meeting now, I believe, is September. I haven't got the date at hand, but the September meeting is the next one. By which time, what I'll do is reiterate perhaps what Clive Campbell was saying. We've got the consultation on the active travel plan at the moment. We're expecting to hear more back from Welsh Government in terms of how they're taking forward their I got the word transformation in my mind. I'll say it anyway, transformation of the rights of way system in terms of shared usage and these sorts of things. So there might be a lot of things coming in over the summer to update at the next meeting, but we'll have to see. September is the next meeting anyway. Okay, thanks, Phil. And so at this point, I'd like to thank all the contributors for all the guests for their contributions and information that they've given us today. And also to you members for coming along. I know some of you may have travelled great distances, perhaps from the kitchen to the lounge, but nevertheless, you've made the effort, and thanks for attending the meeting today. And so I now therefore declare that the meeting closed, and you can now hang up. And so if committee services, the recording button can now be stopped, please.